Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Well, welcome back. We are discussing about what are these different types of intelligence. We discussed musical intelligence, bodily kinesthetic abilities, the two important intellectual ability that was introduced in the domain of multiple, in the framework of multiple theory of intelligence, that is the interpersonal and intrapersonal, and these two are very important to be discussed in the context of emotional intelligence. Interpersonal intelligence refers to one's ability to notice and make distinction among the moods, temperaments, motivations, intentions of other peoples, potentially to act on this knowledge. As a whole, it refers to one's self understanding and self management, which Goldman's and many other theorists of mixed model of emotional intelligence, they emphasizes on the importance of self. The self is more related to the concept what we call managing self, knowing about our own feelings, etc. But interpersonal ability always empowers a person to know about others, to know about others' reactions, intentions, people around a person. But in terms of naturalistic intelligence, there are people who have got natural abilities, like they are very sensitive to understanding of plants, animals, and other aspects of nature. So, people those who are fond of nature, they have the natural ability to make a good understanding of the nature that is prevailing around them. And there are people who are also good at in sensing the issues related to the meaning of life, death, and other aspects of the human conditions. These are called otherwise the existential abilities. However, the question arises, should we use the word intelligence to describe all valuable skills like doing calculus, speaking 6 different of languages, being able to make the through from home to section? So, these are certain questions remain unanswered, but if we do, then Gardner is correct. That means, there is not a single ability, there are multiple abilities. People do have many unrelated kinds of intelligence. Now, we have changed the definitions and meaning of intelligence. Gardner's theory has prompted researchers to begin and examining other non-traditional aspects of intelligence, what we call emotional intelligence. But the concept of intelligence, whether it is traditional or untraditional, the development of intellectual ability depends on two important principles, as earlier we also discussed or tried to highlight the importance of nature and nurture. So, the nature is referring to the hereditary aspects and the nurture referring to the environmental influences. So, how these two has impacted, let us have a look at a study that has these are two studies that shows the influence of heredity and environment. This study, this diagram shows that the correlations of IQ scores for people of varying hereditary and environmental relatedness. If you look at the two colors of these histograms that represent the identical twins reared together and identical twins reared apart. So, that means, when even if they are physiologically similar in their biological makeup, they still react differently, they still behave differently, their intellectual profile, their IQ scores are different. So, this shows that even if your hereditary or genetic makeup is same, environment plays a very important role. But in case of others also, like siblings reared together also shows the similar kind of factors. Unrelated, like children reared together, that emphasizes the role of biological factors. In other studies, the effect of different environment on IQ, it also shows, like the IQ scores compared with the quality of environment. In order to study the influence of environment in a more clear way, you can nurture different child in 3 different environment, you will find their IQ score found to be very different. So, you can easily see here the differences in their IQ scores. The type D people, they show superior intelligence, the type C shows average intelligence, type B shows retarded, and a type A are mentally defective. So, this is how it shows people, those who are from deprived atmosphere are likely to suffer more of psychological diseases or mentally deficiencies, they are likely to suffer. So, coming back to another thing, like changes in IQ scores with age, this has been also pointed out in many other studies. Age has also a big difference, big influence on the intellectual development of a person starting from his childhood. If the study shows that the average scores on intelligence test tends to increase in childhood and adolescence, level off in adulthood, and then begin to decline late in life. But the decline is based on a comparison of different people at different ages. When the same people are tested repeatedly over time, the decline is much less dramatic. For many individuals, IQ remains stable, for some it even increases. This is the study conducted by Sun and Donaldon. Now, going into different theories, so it is important, why? Because it is important to know what are the principles behind the intellectual development of a person's. In a nutshell, we describe that the psychometric theories helps us to understand the factors that are responsible for one's intellectual domain. But is it that only we can categorize people based on different factors or different type of intelligence, or that is not enough to talk about human intelligence? I think that is not enough. We must also highlight what are the different processes that are involved in making a person intelligent. So, there are some process theories that are equally important that highlight the organizations of mental ability. Let us have a look at those factors. They talk about the processing, we call it the process oriented theory. Let us begin with the information processing theory, what we discussed in our earlier class, that Sternberg come up with 3 important dimensions of human intelligence. He said that componential, it is primarily reflects our information processing ability, how quickly we can process information and recover it from our storage, which helps in academic performance. But that is not enough. There are many abilities we do not learn, but we develop through our exposure and experiences. What we call it is the ability to combine different experiences in insightful ways, to solve novel problems. It reflects creativity. It also helps in exhibiting an artistic composure, scientific temperament, scientific skills, which are reflected in terms of creative genius like Einstein, Leonardo da Vinci, etc., etc. We have also seen these kind of abilities being reflected in the acts of artists or painters. There is one more type of intelligence that was classified or developed by Robert Sternberg in his theory of triarchy theory of intelligence. Robert Sternberg talks about also contextual intelligence. It is the ability to function in a practical way, everyday social situations. It reflects the street smart as in negotiating the price of a new car. You have never bought any car, but you do not have any idea. Can you still bargain when you are buying a house? You do not know the exact price of the market, but how you go on negotiating and reaching at better rates. These are some of the abilities that people display during their everyday dealings by finding clues from their experiences which help them to solve their practical problems. Say for examples like, suppose you are walking on the road, suddenly you saw a snake just opposite to you standing in front of you, and how would you react to that situations? Does it require do you have any required ability to deal with the snake? Although we do not have any bookish knowledge, say for example, we have seen the snakes have been caught by the snake catchers or charmers, etc., etc. Then we try to apply those kind of skills. So, that is how there are certain abilities we gain through our practical experiences, and we reflect in our practical behaviors while dealing with practical problems. But there is one more important theory that was given by J.P. Das and J. Naglieri. These are two famous Canadian psychologists who were working on the neuropsychological model of intelligence. They come up with a very important theory, what we call PASS model of the PASS theory of intelligence. This PASS theory emphasizes on planning, attention, simultaneous and successive processing. What are these theories, or what are these theoretical concepts, and what they highlight? So, these processes are nothing but the human cognitive functional zones, such as planning. Planning refers to how we perform certain cognitive tasks, cognitive control, use of process, knowledge, intentionality. So, these are refers to Luria's another physiological psychologist from Russia, who identified different functional zones in human brains. They are responsible for our cognitive functions or intellectual functions. Attention refers to cognitive activity that is focused and resistance to distraction. This refers to Luria's first unit. Simultaneous and successive are the two forms of processing information that refers to the second unit of Luria's, the functional organization of the brain. This article was published in Scientific Americans in 1970s, where Luria tried to identify different cognitive functions, how they are related to different areas, brain areas. So, this is what you call attention is the first functional zones, and this is the second functional zone where the simultaneous and successive processing takes place, and this is the third functional unit. These are responsible for planning. Mostly this is the precentral areas. The PASS theory emphasizes on the concept of planning. Planning is a concept which is a mental process that is by which the child determines, selects and uses efficient solutions to his or her problems. So, for examples, it helps in problem solving, developing plans, using strategies, impulse control, self control, control of processing and retrieval of knowledge. So, these are some of the benefits that has been outlined by Naglieri, who works at the George Mason University. He also talks about the benefits of the functional zone of attention. Attention is very important. It is an important domain of our mental activity. It is a mental process where a person selectively attends to some stimuli and ignore others. it is also very important in terms of our memory. Why do we selectively memorize certain actions or objects while we ignore others? So, that is why the attention plays a very important role in the process of our concentration, memory, learning, etc., etc. So, that is why it is known as the focused cognitive activity, selective attention, resistance to distractions. So, that is why more focus has been put on the concept of attention. Simultaneous processing is a mental activity by which the child integrates stimuli into groups. The stimuli are seen as a whole. Each piece must be related to each other. Like when we look at a person, we do not perceive. When you ask, how is the person? We do not just say that yes, he is beautiful, or he is handsome, or she is beautiful. We often say he is a nice person. When you say when he is a nice person, it takes all of his abilities into analysis, and then we draw conclusions. So, this is exactly applies to the learning theory, the whole versus part learning theories. We do not understand people's abilities or intellectual profiles just in terms of one entity or a specific ability. We take all the abilities available with the person, then we decide how capable is the person. Then successive processing is also equally important, because most of the learning, rote memories, are done on this basis. Processing, it is a mental search activity by which a person integrates stimuli in a specific serial orders. Many times we want to remember certain things or certain numbers on the basis of serial number. So, that is why, say for example, we can quickly learn. Our learning is faster when it is successive, because you can remember numbers in a faster and better way from increasing order or decreasing order. So, why? Because it facilitates the memory processes. The stimuli form a chain like progression. You expect that yes, 2 comes after 1, 3 comes after 2. So, there is a natural expectations. It is a chain like events. Stimuli are not interrelated, but we remember them in an order. This shows the whole past theory of intelligence, and these are different zones. This is the first zone, the arousal attention, and this is the second functional zone, simultaneous and successive processing. This is the third functional zone, what is called planning, and all these processes they interact with each others. This process will be more clear if you look at these models. See here what happens, you are receiving any information from outside. So, suppose you feel that there is a goal, yes, you perceive there is a goal, and for that goal you need a plan. Okay. If you need a plan, then you complete the task, then it goes to know the plan. If yes, then apply the plan. If no, then develop the plan. And if you apply the plan, then is the plan okay? No, then again go back and develop another plan. So, this is how the all three functional zones they interact with each others. Now, if the plan is okay, then apply the plan. When you apply the plan, is it working? Yes, if it is working, then it is complete. If it is not working, again you go back and develop a new plan. So, this is exactly the theory, they interact with each others, and finally, this is the output that comes up when in terms of your activity, intellectual activity. Well, this CAS test is developed based on the past theory. This is known as the cognitive assessment systems developed by Das and Nagler in 96. It is now worldwide very popular. It measures 4 important domains like you just discussed: planning, attention, simultaneous and successive. This planning function is measured in terms of 3 important tests. One is called matching numbers, plan codes, plan connections. Okay. And the second is attention is the number detections. Say for example, there is a series of number, in between one number is missing or in between one number is repeated. When the tester asks how many times the number is missing or how many the number is repeated. Then there is another test called expressive attention, then receptive attentions. Then the simultaneous processes are measured in terms of nonverbal matrices. So, a small portion of the entire matrices, say for example, is missing, and that missing figure is followed by 5-6 alternatives, and the subject is asked to find out the correct choices. If that is pasted on the missing figure, that will complete the matrix. So, that is how the simultaneous processing is processing ability is measured. Then we have test of successive processing. So, this is also measured in terms of word series, sentence repetitions, sentence question and speech rate. This cache description in fact is an individually administered measure of basic psychological processes. It is administered by the trained professionals, separate like school psychologists, even counseling psychologists. It takes around 45 to 60 minutes depending upon the version given. It is designed for people or students from 5th to 17 years of age. It is easy to administer and score. It consists of 4 theoretically derived scales. However, this is the whole toolkit of the cache, the comprehensive assessment systems. One can think of buying for their personal consumptions, or even institutions and departments, they can think of buying it for the libraries. That could be useful for assessing students' intellectual profile. It will be also help for, it is very helpful for counseling centers, particularly for assessment of their cognitive abilities of their school going students. Okay. Yeah, the major focus of the information processing was on the different areas that are responsible for what do you say processing informations. In information processing theories, there are certain areas which get affected with the increase in age. Say for example, short term memory. Earlier findings shows that short term memory only lasts for 15 to 20 seconds, but although the trend is changing nowadays, the short term memory is otherwise known as the working memory. It is likely to be affected by the information processing ability if it is not maintained properly. It is the ability to hold and organize material in a short term memory basis. Processing of speed is also generally showing all the mental processes. When we grow on our age, human beings usually likely to lose the pace of the processing informations. Even their reaction ability also goes down. The organizations of events, objects, sequence of events, they also gets affected. Then conservatism, less likely to abandon an old hypothesis in favor of a new one. It very often happens with people, those who have high level of cognitive rigidity, but over a period of time when you are habituated with a particular mode of behavior, you do not like to change that. So, that gets affected when you try to come across new findings, new events. And very often I used to see in terms of doctors, in very recently I met a orthopedic specialist when I met an accident, and that doctor is known to be a very classic doctor. You know what do you mean by classic doctor? Who believes in the classical treatment procedures. He says, no, all these I do not believe in unnecessary putting the patients on economical burden, asking him to go for MRI or fMRI or CT scans. A simple X-ray is enough for my treatments. But the today's modern orthopedicians, they say no, diagnosis is very much important. So they do not much rely on their experiences, they more rely on their recent advances. That is why this is going to affect our intellectual domain when we grow on our age. Well, this is very important to discuss in the framework of intelligence. When you talk about the concept of IQ, and this is how the IQ has been distributed. If you look at this normal distribution, majority of the population is concentrated on the middle of the curve. So, it itself shows that it means that intelligence is normally distributed. Yeah, this is what we call the classifications of IQ scores and the verbal description of that level. And in the general populations, you will find people, mentally retarded people 2.2%, the borderline people 6.7%, dull normal 16.1, average 50%, 0. Bright people will find in the general population around 16.1%, superior are close to 6.7%, and very superior, what we call exceptional intelligence or the gifted people, are closely around 2.2 populations. So, that is why it is quite natural to see varieties of people in our societies. All are not highly intelligent, all are not highly dull people, all are not mad people, and all are not creative people. So, that is the beauty of the distribution of intelligence, that gives impression about different abilities that is present within human beings. So, I would like to bring some examples how intelligence is, or what are the different techniques those are used for the evaluation of human intelligence. Well, basically, if you look into the domains of measurements, there are varieties of tests available. One is called verbal test, like paper pencil test. Questions are prepared and students are asked to answer those questions. Certain questions are non-verbal in nature, like matrices, or you can look at in the wooden block test, like where you give them some activity, mental activity. Say for examples, you give them some blocks, wooden blocks, and show a designs, and you ask them to prepare a particular design by the help of the wooden blocks available. That shows how quickly they complete the designs. That shows the level of their intellectual abilities. Okay, we will take a short break, then we will come back. Thank you.